You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is finally episode 500. 500 episodes, 12 years. You do the math. I don't even know how long that turns into in days, even if at an hour a piece.
I love Cube Dude's comments, though. He said that's a lot in Lothal cat years and those cat years.
Yes. Yeah, it is quite a monument, I think. So it's we're not going to belabor this too much. I mean, this is pretty exciting. I think we talked about this already. I think we've done more than 500. So it's like, yeah, this is cool. It's 500 is the number, but I think it's like closer to 560 something, or we're probably close up on 600. But nonetheless, it's a cool round number. And yeah, it's exciting. So thank you, everybody, for that's helped us get here. Whether you are a listener, one-time listener, long-time listener, first-time listener, I think I just said that one, supporter, family, friends, host, fellow podcaster, everybody that contributed to the success of the show, but, you know, before we were on, and certainly in our tenure, we do appreciate it. So thank you. And thanks to you, man. Thanks for all the time that you spent putting up with my terrible jokes and, you know, rolling with the punches at times.
Well, I've put up with them so long, I've started to tell them on my own.
I know.
So
That's growth, Jonesy. You're growing, and that's a good thing. So
it's really scary at the very least. But, you know, and thank you to you too, Howard. It really is. I have a great partner in all of this. And a huge thanks to Mike Rondo, of course. Mike started this whole thing back. You know, if he wants to bring back KOTOR, you know, and do a little live play or something like that, yeah, Mike, you know, cool. Albert's always game for that. But no, yeah, huge thanks to Mike Rondo, of course, who started this whole thing, kept it going, even when times got difficult, personal life got difficult. You know, really persevered, taught you and I a lot about podcasting, a lot about this show, you know, about what to do with it, a lot of great advice. And even though he's kind of bequeathed it onto us, he's back there in the background, always keeping an eye on us, always giving us advice, unsolicited mostly, but it's fantastic. So we appreciate everything, Mike. We really do. We love having you as part of the show, still living on through the credits and things like that too. So yeah, we hope you're proud of where we're doing with the show. And again, hopefully another 500 coming up.
500 more. We'll see.
I remember we used to just hope for another 100 or another 250 or another 300. Now it's like, nah, we'll just go another 500. Let's just make it a cool 1K. You know?
Why not? All right. Well, we've got a couple things that we want to break here in terms of news on top of the primary discussion, which tonight I have a billion questions that I've come up with that I feel are things that are either unanswered for this season 3 of The Mandalorian, or they were questions that have been carried over even from like season 1 in terms of where we thought the show was going to go. So we're going to get into all those in a little bit. It may be a bit of a speed round on some questions, and I think some questions are probably going to warrant a little bit deeper, more involving kind of conversation. So it should be a lot of fun. Certainly want to hear from everybody that's with us live tonight on your feedback, what you guys think. And certainly if you have questions that we haven't come up with or haven't thought about, feel free to post them in there. If we've got time, we'll try to get to those as well, just because we're in full celebration mode. But before we do, we've got a little bit of business, some breaking news, hot off the presses. What's going on Patreon? Okay, we really got to get some audio going on here. Jonesy, what do we got going on the Patreon front here?
Well, we've got a lot of cool things. So we're shaking things up just a little bit, not in a negative way, but in a very positive way. So we're actually taking some of the feedback that our listeners have given to us over the years. A lot of folks like it when we have done news in the past, and we kind of do them in bunches, and we don't really talk about rumors. So what we've decided to do is actually officially do a news and rumor show. So this is not going to be a what would you call it, like a spoiler type of show or anything, digging into those type of things, but this would address news that comes out, rumors that happen, even like speculative rumors about who is doing what, or did this happen, and have a little more commentary around that side of things. Again, something that we don't typically do a lot of, but we've heard you, and we know that this is something that's really interesting. So we want to be able to do this, and this will be about a half-hour show. We'll do it every week. It will be published both on the live stream feed. It's just a video upload, but also as a podcast as well. So you'll get both sides, no matter if you listen to the show or if you do the live stream. Yeah. So that's one aspect that we're doing. We're pretty excited about bringing that one to y'all.
Yeah, and that will kind of supplant the news segment that we do typically on the show, right? So
Right.
I would say unless it's something like critical, right? And absolutely, we've got to talk about it. I think we'll still do that whenever it makes sense. But for the most part, you'll see a lot of the content we do with news moved into that specific news only show. And one of the things this really does allow us to do is, typically we land somewhere in the 15 to 20 minute mark with the news already. Giving us an extra 10 minutes or so, expanding that to 30 would be kind of nice. And I think it's going to allow us to get into some news topics or newsworthy topics that we don't traditionally get into, right? We do have to make a decision about what are we going to talk about. We know there's a lot of other stuff going on, and this will give us the opportunity to kind of touch on some things again, like we would normally just kind of skip over or not really dig into. So hopefully it becomes a more comprehensive news kind of show for you guys, for anybody that's looking for the quick 30-minute breakdown on how things are going. And yeah, looking forward to it. That should be a lot of fun. It's going to be, I think we're planning for Sunday nights on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what we're hoping is that by giving news its own thing as well, it'll help us focus these shows as well. So the true dedicated shows, we know that they've been running closer to 2 hours at times. So we want to be able to manage that a little bit better, not only for us to make sure we get a good edit and things like that, but also to make sure that you guys can be able to consume that and feel like, hey, we can go out there and listen to the live stream or participate and not have to stay up all night for it. So hopefully a bit of a win-win there. Another thing that we're going to do is for those who are Patreon members, you are accustomed to, usually we lead off the Patreon episodes, usually on Sunday nights, with a collecting show and tell type of thing. So what we've decided to do, again, in the interest of keeping those shows more focused, is that we will do a dedicated show and tell collecting, and we will do a video for that as usual, but we will load that directly to Patreon as its own exclusive content, as its own piece of content. So that'll become regular. That'll be an every week thing as well. That'll be very focused. So you can just kind of check it out whenever you're ready, whenever you want. Again, and just something that it allows Albert May to kind of geek out, and Lauren too when she's on the show, just to say, here's the stuff we've kind of accumulated through the week or through a couple weeks, and be able to share that with y'all. Yeah, I know one of our favorite channels to watch, like on Instagram, is Star Wars Thrifting. I know it's Lauren's, probably her favorite, potentially, for Star Wars, and just seeing that kind of stuff really inspires me. Like, I need to go spend more money, apparently, but it's not about spending money. It's like go finding like these really niche little deals. Like I went to I don't know, you went to a flea market or something like that and found something.
Right,
So
yeah.
anyway, just something, again, to kind of pull some of this apart. It gives us more flexibility on it. It again continues to feed the exclusive Patreon content as well for those that have signed up for Patreon. And again, allows us to focus our other content a little bit more in that space as well.
Yeah, and a couple other things. So forgot to mention the news show will tentatively be called, well, I shouldn't say tentative. I think we've already kind of landed. It'll be called the Wave Station.
Right.
So Cantina Cast, the Wave Station. The Wave Station. You'll see we've got Jonesy's already working on designs and logos and stuff like that. So that's all coming. For the trading one, I think we landed on Tatooine Trading Posts. Makes sense since we're the Cantina Cast.
Right.
And yeah, I like it. So that'll be the show and tell one. We've also got the Cantina. Let me just talk quickly about the Cantina After Dark, because this name has been around forever and it has gone through so many iterations and had different, connotations in terms of what the show.
We just really like the name, but we don't know what to do with it.
We didn't know what to do with it, right? We've had it around sitting on the shelf forever, and it's a cool name. We've enjoyed it. So the Cantina After Dark, that'll be a higher tier kind of Patreon perk, but that will allow folks to actually come into what I'm going to call the green room. So when we go on air prior to the show, we're going to try to dedicate at least 30 minutes before the show for any of these people that are of this tier to kind of be on there. We'll pull you out of the show, go live. You'll still be in the green room, so you can still kind of see everything that's happening in the background. You can choose to be in there or not, go watch it however you'd like. And then afterwards, once we're done recording, we'll come back out of there, pull everybody that's in there from this tier onto it, and we'll hang around for like 30 minutes and just kind of talk about whatever. Likely we're going to talk about the show and get kind of thoughts and opinions of those folks on how they felt about, the content that we were covering, the topics that we were discussing, that sort of thing. But it can be kind of whatever. So that's the After Dark part now is really After Dark, because by the time we're done with that, it's probably going to be pretty dark. So now it makes literal sense. I'm pretty happy about that.
Right. Yeah. So, and then of course, another thing from a certain point of view will still be happening about monthly. We still want to be able to do that. Listener Q&As and things like, those are all there. Jedi Novel Archive is still firmly implanted as well.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren is doing an amazing job there. She will continue to be doing that. So no changes there. Really, what you're getting instead of 2 shows a week, you'll get 4 shows a week now between main stuff and Patreon stuff, and they'll just be a little more concise and a little more specific, so you can consume the content you like, you want, and you can kind of get to everything you need within a better frame of time. So
Yeah.
we'll be making those changes over on the Patreon side here in the coming week or two. So expect to see those. Again, it's not going to change the tiers if you're already a member. It's not going to shake anything up too much or anything like that. So, and we'll make a post there when it's all live, so you can go take a look at it. But we'll work on that soon. But just to give everyone kind of heads up about what we're doing, where we're going. You know, we're pretty excited to be able to offer you guys more content and do it in a way that we feel like is sustainable on our end too, to make sure that we don't die.
Yeah, always a good thing to look out for our health. The names will be changing. We'll get into that later. There's some pretty clever names, if I do say so myself, on there. Some that are worth a little chuckle. And the other thing, too, that we're not going to talk about tonight, but we will expand upon here very soon is you're going to see many more perks now compared to what we have today. So it's really kind of an expansion of the perks as they exist today. There's some new ones in there as well, some that are just kind of very tailored to the different tiers. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this. I think it makes a lot of sense from our perspective, and certainly we feel like this is, you can kind of pick how much you want to get involved in this show, right? At every level. If you want to just be a plain old supporter and just come in and say, give us a thumbs up, there's that option. And if you really want to be in the weeds and kind of get the behind the scenes stuff and get a chance to kind of talk to us before and after shows and all that, I mean, it goes all the way up to that, to even like focusing on your own show at some point. So all that's soon to come, and we'll have that out here, I guess, in the next week or so, hopefully by then.
Yep, absolutely.
All
And
right.
speaking of thumbs up, huge thumbs up to all the people on the live stream tonight. So again, if you are listening to the podcast, we welcome you to invite you to come out. Sorry, I'm a little congested tonight, so my brain is not working, but we invite you to come out and watch us on the live stream, participate in the chat. Albert puts all the comments up on the screen off and on throughout the show. We try to interact with y'all as best we can. But tonight so far, we've got Jonathan, Steph, Sky, Music Train, Dale, Cube Dude, Qui-Gon J, Lauren, Alex, and obviously Subdued. Thank you all for coming out as well. And we also, speaking of Cube Dude, is our new Patreon member as well. So Cube Dude, thank you for signing up for Patreon. And a special thanks to our now part of the tribe members, Mike, Lauren, Dante, Risk, Justin, Jackson, Sharkman, Dan, Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, Josh, Jacob, and Steve, as well as Delusions of Grandeur with Rod as well. So thank you all so much for being on the live stream. Thank you for being a part of the Patreon community as well. And we hope that everyone will go out to cantinacast.com/Patreon and be able to check those out. cantinacast.com/YouTube if you'd like to check out the podcast or the live stream as well. But this is going to be an interesting show tonight.
You're like drowning over there. I feel bad. I'm sorry.
I was like, and then Nase just joined us on the live stream as well. So hello.
Yes. Hello, Nase. So thank you, Cube Dude. Honestly, a special shout out again there for signing up for Patreon. Hopefully we'll deliver and make all your wildest dreams come true. That's probably not what we're going to do, but we hope that we will give you the content you're looking for and what you're paying for. If you want to go to Patreon, again, just a quick plug, head out to cantinacast.com/Patreon. You can sign up right now. If you sign up, it's going to be all the current tiers. We will announce this at some point this week. We'll kind of shift all that up, and you guys can pick and choose the new tiers here very soon. So if it were me, I would just kind of wait, honestly, and just see how the new tiers shake down. If you're still kind of on the fence about whether or not to sign up, and see if it's worth your time and your money. We definitely hope we're the right fit for you in that regard. Anything else before we get into the nitty gritty?
I'm laughing at Stephanie's comment in the chat because it reminded me, it's probably not appropriate to put on the screen, but it did remind me of when we were doing the After Dark series. I went and created a new video intro.
Yeah.
And this is Patreon, right? So we're kind of Patreon. So
well, not really because it's public, but yeah, no.
It's Sunday, so it's semi-Patreon, I guess, today. But anyway, it reminded me of doing the After Dark show, and I just did all these weird takes where I would like yell into the microphone. And I think one of them I did like, woo, or something like that.
I remember that one.
I don't think I actually ever released it, though.
No, you texted it to me or something.
Yeah, I think I intended to release it to Patreon. So maybe when we reboot Cantina After Dark, I'll do something like that.
Yeah, it's a hoot.
You got to embrace your Texans sometimes.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a hoot, like literally.
It's a hoot nanny.
Hoot nanny. All right. Enough of the jibba jabba. Let's get into some speculation and get into these billion questions that we've got here. So again, some of these are kind of really easy. I don't know. We need to spend too much time. And the other ones, I think I don't know. We'll see. And some of it's going to be a revisit too. I definitely want to come back to in just a few minutes here about who the spies are, only because I know we've kind of thrown out a lot of things. The chatter is still like scuttlebutt is everywhere. Chatter's everywhere all weekend long. People are talking about this. And to my point that I made on Thursday, like this was like kudos to Favreau for doing this, because this is exactly what, generates buzz, is putting this out there and being real coy about who potentially could be the other spies. They've given us some options. So we'll come back to that here in a little bit, but let's start off with kind of the very basic question, and I don't even know that this really matters at this point, because I mean, we still talk about it. It's still an ongoing conversation for a lot of folks, but the length of the episode. We've had many shows now in Star Wars television that have been 30 minutes and are very, very dense in terms of the content and what they're trying to tell. And then we've had like 50-minute episodes that seem kind of light and fluffy with, maybe not the deepest type episodes, but are still enjoyable. So with the season finales, though, we tend to get a little bit longer episodes. But where would you, if you had to land a time on this one, given what we know, where do you think we'd be for the final runtime on this episode coming up?
So is this going to be like the total one, like we would see posted on Disney Plus, or you mean just like the actual episode length?
Well, yeah,
it doesn't matter. I'll just go with what you would see on Disney
Plus, because I think that's what we usually talk about, and then we work backwards from there and removing the the front and end stuff and all that.
Well, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give a range. I'm going to say between 48 and 53 minutes.
48 and 53. So you're giving a 5-minute spread there.
Yeah, that's kind of my around 50 minutes. I think is probably, it seems about right from what they've done in the past and what we've seen in other episodes. And I know these have drifted as close to 30 to 35 minutes at sometimes, that sub 40 mark. But I think these season finales and last week's episode was like 53, I think, right?
Yeah, it was one of the longer ones. I think 55 all in.
Yeah, like so 50 plus. And so I think this one probably going to be in that same ballpark, maybe not quite as long, but they did set it up. I mean, they've got a lot of work to do depending on where they want to take this episode. How much do you want to resolve? How much do you want to leave as a cliffhanger, which we really haven't had. I wouldn't say we really had a true cliffhanger for Mandalorian, have we?
Yeah, we have. For the Mandalorian?
The Gideon standing on top of the TIE fighter with Darksaber.
Right.
I wouldn't say it was really it was a teaser of sorts, but I don't know if it was actual cliffhanger. Like there wasn't some perilous moment, we were waiting for our hero to be rescued, or would they survive? It wasn't necessarily like that.
Yeah,
but
no, you're right. Yeah, they haven't done that really. It's been like
they've been pretty tidy. Like Bad Batch was the first one I remember that actually like did a true cliffhanger.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. Right. It's been more like, hey, there's a lot of stuff that's unresolved. We may or may not tell you next season, but for the most part, I mean, you're kind of walking away thinking, okay, well, yeah, I think we're at a good place here. The whole Luke Skywalker, I mean, the Grogu thing, right? That seemed like that was the finality. That's what he was trying to go for. He was trying to get him to somebody that was of his own, background or whatever, Jedi. And as sad as that was, we certainly didn't know the fate of Grogu at that point, but it felt like, okay, that was the mission. So I think we were okay, right?
We got a few people in chat here, though, that are given times.
38 minutes is Dale.
Yeah, Music Train had 44 minutes, Train.
Yeah, I'm going to go with somewhere between 15 and 55 minutes. No, I
cover all angles. Let's extend it to 15 to 65 minutes just to be on the safe side.
I'm kidding. This one's tough. In my head, they usually film these things together, right? The last 2 episodes are usually filmed together.
Yeah, and they just carve it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they just kind of cut it and figure out where we're going to cut it. And that's the part that's screwing me, because in my head, I would love for this to be a 55-minute show. Man, realistically, historically, that's never been the case. I don't see us getting back-to-back 55-minute shows. So I'm with you. It's probably going to be in that 35 to maybe 45 range. I'll go a little bit lower.
Okay.
But it's just, there's so much that has to be, okay, there's so much that I want to be finished and wrapped up and told that it feels like this should be a 3-hour show. Right?
Yeah. If you look at our show notes, you would think that this is going to be about a 3 or 4 hour episode for The Mandalorian for the last one.
Yeah, this show with the questions that we have will be 2 times as long as the show that we're going to get, the episode we're going to get.
That's actually true.
So yeah, I'm gonna land somewhere in there, that 35, 45 minute range. I think if we get anything over 45, I mean, I'd be like, over the moon in terms of But other than that, no, I don't see it going there.
I think they have enough to do. I think a 40 to 45 minimum is probably a pretty safe bet. Well, why don't we get into some of the questions there, and
Well, I'm going to start with a doozy. Okay, so this is all we're going to get into like appearances now, this little quick section here. Will we see the Patreon guards again? And if so...
The Patreon guards?
The Praetorian guards again. And if so, how will they figure into the final episode?
I think yes, I think we will. I don't think they were one and done. Well, I take that back. Usually these really specialized, you'll see them once and they just kind of go in the background. They name dropped them, so they have to show them to you. Mm-hmm. And to your point before, the way they cut the episode, they would have just showed it to you now. Yeah. I would like for them to come back. I think there's a scenario if they are going to actually rescue Din Djarin, and that's and that happens, then I think the Praetorian guards are definitely part of that scenario because they're there for a reason. They're there to protect. They're there to finish them off. They're the enforcers, if you will. So I think in terms of likely and percentage wise, I think this one's probably in that 75 to 80% range of being pretty highly likely that they would make a return.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I think if anybody is going to guard Din Djarin, it's probably going to be the Praetorian guards. So then the question becomes like, who is it that ends up fighting them? And that's it's a very difficult, like maybe it's Grogu, right? I'm trying to think like who actually would even be able to take on the Praetorian guards given what we know about them.
Right.
And for somebody that's force sensitive would have a huge advantage over them, right? But your typical Mandalorian, Paz, sure, he was really roughed up and exhausted and just barely survived. And you can argue that he probably could have done more in his, in a full, healthy, unhurt kind of Paz.
Well, and maybe one-on-one, not taking.
Yeah, 1 versus 3. So maybe it is going to be I would think it would have to be like a Grogu, maybe using the Force. That questions we'll hear a little bit later. I think maybe it is going to be a Bo-Katan using the Darksaber against them. Beyond that, maybe it's an all-on assault, right? 3 or 4 Mandalorians with them, just so we have some fodder that kind of help that die in the battle. But the short answer is yes. I think we're going to see them again, which I'm really excited about. And I'm with you. I would put them as guards for Din Djarin if Moff Gideon himself isn't there as well. I think that's kind of like their big, playing piece right now as far as Gideon's concerned.
Right. A couple comments in the chat though. So Dale thinks that Din will fight them when he escapes the debriefing room. Galen thinks that he's bringing the heat here. Ahsoka, Sabine, and Bo will have lightsabers to fight the guards.
Oh, we got all kinds of people showing up now.
Yeah, now we're getting these are speaking your love language here.
They really are. Thanks, Galen.
Of course, Dale came back and said Bo-Katan will be too busy riding the Mythosaur to care. So yeah. I paraphrased his comment there just for humor.
Okay, so here's a fun little one. Who are we most likely to see? Dr. Pershing, Peli Motto, Cobb Vanth, or Boba Fett?
Most likely to see. Oh gosh. Okay, I'm going to strike Cobb Vanth and Peli Motto off that entirely.
Yeah, that's probably
because I just don't know where they would fit. To be honest with you,
we don't have any time. We're out of time. Sorry, guys.
Dr. Pershing, man, I'm going to go with Dr. Pershing on this one just because we've seen him this season. We had Gideon kind of hedge that one a little bit, that he's basically a vegetable, but maybe that's not permanent. How would Boba Fett just show up out of nowhere? Now, granted, he showed up out of nowhere before, but there was a very specific, like he was on our Tatooine, Din was, he got the armor and he was following them. How would we know he was at without being called for help?
Right.
And so, and again, is that something that we're ready to do quite yet? Now, in a post-credit type of scene, could we see them? I'm going to exclude any kind of post-credit stuff because sometimes that's a bit of a mystery box. So I'm just saying within the main show, I think Dr. Pershing is the most likely one to show up. And post-credit, it's kind of all bets are off. I think Cobb Vanth or Boba Fett start to elevate on that list, especially if a Book of Boba Fett season 2 is a possibility.
Yeah. I've always said this, and you can go back to like season 1, I think. Or at least season 2, or early season 2. I was in my head at some point, you remember the story that I made up where I had Din Djarin, Boba Fett coming over, I had Cobb Vanth coming back over, and it was going to be this thing like, oh, we're all, quote, Mandalorians, so this is all the way. And it doesn't really feel like we're going to go that far into the love fest that I really want for, quote, Mandalorians or anybody that just wears Mandalorian armor.
Right.
And that's fine. But I would say like Cobb Vanth's probably the furthest out of there. I'd rule out Peli Motto as well. Honestly,
Lauren's putting her money on Peli.
Well, of course she is. She's just doing that to stoke the flames here with me and the fire more than anything. Dr. Pershing, I think he's probably more of a season 4 or maybe pick up in another series of some sort. I can't see him come back. They did quite a number on him. And I think at this point, the takeaway is that, oh, well, his science and his research is all there and they already got all the equipment they needed. They kind of used him to get that so that maybe somebody else could pick that work up. But he could be in that state.
They said his research was lost for now.
Right.
So that tells me that maybe they still need something from him. He seems like he still has value, I think.
Yeah. And I would agree. Like, I think the for now is like, okay, we kind of fried him a little bit harder than we thought we were going to. So he needs time to heal. But once he's ready, we'll bring him back into the fold and get him started back on that cloning project that we had him on, right?
Right.
So I think that's just too soon, right? I think that's too soon to kind of expect him to be back. So Boba Fett, I guess, I mean, I like the idea, and he doesn't really need a reason to come back. He's Boba freaking Fett. So I don't know. I'll go with Boba Fett since you went with Pershing, and we can say we were right on this one.
All right.
All right. Let's move on to another question here. So the next one is one that I've been asking, dying for forever. Will we see Fenn Rau? So I think I predicted this in our final hype show, even before the series started. There's been people that have picked this up, talked about it as being rumor. We haven't seen anything. There's nothing for us to really believe that he would show up. But especially right now, given the state of where we are in The Mandalorian, and let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that, and I don't even need him like coming in to rescue anybody. My thing was, he has so much vast knowledge of the Mandalorians, the ways, the cultures, and how things are. He's almost kind of that historian. He's almost like that elder kind of figure, but somebody who would be like that right-hand advisor to Bo-Katan. That's how I saw him going into the season. I thought maybe we'd get him sooner rather than later, but I'd still love to see him, and I still think there's an opportunity to do so. Be a huge surprise for Rebels fans and for Clone Wars fans. But again, going back to the time, I don't know, unless he just pops in and it's like, hey, I'm here, and we don't really do a lot of explanation. I don't know that he can make it at this point, but
I think it all depends on the spies aspect of it, to be honest with you, because I'm with you. That last part is the part I always struggle with is, okay, how much time we have? How are we going to integrate them in? Where does it make sense? Why would they come in, and what would they bring to the table? Yeah. I love the idea of Fenn Rau coming out there. I would love to say yes on this one. But I think it's a yes, it's very possible still, but I think some of it depends on that spies aspect of things. Mm-hmm. If the spies, especially if it's like the armor, then you've kind of lost a leadership type of person within the group. Now you could argue that Din and Bo fill that gap, but now you've lost Paz and you've lost the armor from the Children of the Watch angle of it. So could you have another really strong historical presence, even though I get that there's gaps in some of that. But I'm with you. I think there's an opportunity there that they would be able to help fill that void of bringing them into it. Now, kind of like with Cobb Vanth, like all of a sudden you just bring someone in out of nowhere with no context. That's a little bit tough to figure out how they might do that.
Yeah.
But then again, they're the creative people on the planet, so I have faith that they would figure it out. So I'm gonna go with probably not on Fenn Rau. I actually say that, but I really want him though. So I'm going to go with my heart here and say yes. I have really no basis for that though, unfortunately. I'm just going to say yes because I just want to will this into existence.
What does your heart tell you, Jonesy?
Yes, I think. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, me too. I was trying to do a...
Yeah, your Shmi needs some work, buddy.
It does need some work. I need to get your accent down. I'm nowhere near. And same thing. Like I'm all like my heart says he needs to be in this and I want him to be in this. So I'm saying yes, we're going to see Fenn Rau. I don't even care if they just show him, even they mention it. It could be like a Zeb kind of appearance, right? Where he's just, he talks about two things and he's out. So, and we seem to have people in the chat tonight that are pretty sure that he will. So
yeah, Galen's all over it. Dale says, I don't see Fenn Rau showing up to battle, but maybe they find him instead of Din after the battle's over. So you're looking for a path to get there to show him on screen. Maybe maybe Moff Gideon's got him too in some way. He's wrapped up in this and somehow on the back end. So,
all right,
there you go.
All right, next question. You have 5 seconds to answer. Will we see Thrawn?
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go.
I'm sorry, your time is up. We're moving on to the. No, I'm kidding.
In the main episode, I'm gonna go with no. We've seen him in the trailer for Ahsoka, even if just on the back of the official released one, but on the private trailer. Of course, you get a very clear picture of him. So the element of surprise, the element of teasing, I think is kind of over in that regard. So
yep.
In the core episode, I want to go with no. There's no reason to show him at this point, and so I don't think he'll show up.
I'm with you. As much as I'd love to see him, it's too early. If you think about just from a timeline perspective, we got to get through Ahsoka. I don't even know we haven't talked about Ahsoka yet. We've got a show coming up where we're going to get into more details and that sort of thing. But I don't even see him showing up in that until like the very end, if he shows up at all. And I've been on this soapbox of Heir to the Empire for like 3 years now. And I keep saying Thrawn would be kind of like the big bad. And now with the movie, like, oh my gosh, it's canon in my head. So good luck getting me out of that. But so timing wise, it doesn't make sense if that really is where they're going. Could they give us little teasers similar to what Marvel did when they were teasing Thanos? He popped up a couple times in movies at the very end, and just that ever looming presence that it was inevitable that he would show up at some point. I think they're kind of playing that same game here, going down that same route. So to your point, I think if we get like a post-credit scene with him, I think that would be awesome to actually see him front and center, have him say a couple of lines. Maybe he's talking to Paleon and Brendel Hux or something like that, right? Even if it's just something similar to that, I think that would be totally worth it, but it's going to be an end credit scene, and I don't expect any more than that. I think it would be a good primer for people just to, even that are not familiar with who he is, that, again, there is somebody out there that is a larger threat looming, because they've kind of signaled that all season long.
I think what would be interesting, though, is I think a post-credit scene, if there is one, but we're kind of presuming there will be, right? Because there was last time.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what they put as the post-credit scene, because I think that'll tell you about how this show is supposed to be setting up other shows. Like, really, the only link we have was like with Book of Boba Fett from a post-credit scene perspective, what we got that time. So it'll be really interesting to see if an Ahsoka if we get an Ahsoka, or if we get Skeleton Crew or something like that. If we get outside of the actual core Mandalorian type of teasers, because this is still the Mandalorian, right? Even if it's become the Mandalorians,
Sure.
and we've had Jedi involved with it, it's still a Mandalorian story. So to tease a non-Mandalorian story would be a step outside of that box. So that would be interesting to see if that's the angle they really want to go, to lend to where you've been talking all along of like this big grand event like we've heard about. So that's kind of an interesting one to watch. Or if this is going to steer right back into, no, we're still sticking to the core of it's Mandalorian oriented in whatever way that actually represents.
Yeah. Okay, let's move into the next question. This is the one we've been talking about a lot ever since. So going back to the final hype show. So by the way, I listened to the final hype show. We got so many things right. Like, I'm so proud of ourselves for the amount of things we nailed. Either we're getting better at this. I'm not gonna say we're good at this, because we're not.
Well,
but we're either getting.
We actually gave like multiple answers to make sure that we got it right. So
Be quiet. You see, you're ruining this fun here. But we got so many things right, and we're getting better at this, or the writing's becoming predictable. I don't care either way. But this is one that we had called I think we had first said it in season 2. But this was one of the things that we both agreed that this would happen. Just to kind of wax history here, we talked about how Bo-Katan would be the person that we would want in our hearts to be the Mandalore, but we thought it would be Din Djarin. And so I think we're kind of on tracking there, which I think is great. I don't know that anybody had Bo-Katan as the Mandalore, but we certainly did. Either way, the question begs, will we see the Mythosaur? They've already teased it. And if so, will someone write it? Who are they going to write it? And if you want to go out and just kind of explain what that final battle is, go ahead and please do so. Thank you.
Okay, well, will we see the Mythosaur again? Yes, I think we will. Will we see someone write it? I'm going to go with no. I mean, we've seen where it takes time to tame these beasts. Well, then again, we just need a montage. So maybe the better question is, will we get a Mythosaur montage? Because it's alliteration, and we need more of those in our lives. So
Sure.
will we get a Mythosaur montage, Albert?
Probably not. There's no time. And we were way off on the...
Then we're not writing this thing.
No, I think it's fair.
We can't do it without a montage.
Does someone need to write it in order for it to be having an impact on the battle? Can they steer it or guide it or seek it on somebody or whatever? Because I mean, otherwise this thing's just coming out of the ground, and then what? Like, it's just terrorizing everybody, and there's it doesn't really care.
I mean, you go back to the monster of the week type of thing, right? It's natively on your side. It's kind of like when Godzilla faces King Kong. All of a sudden you have people kind of going in one camp. Now, I'm not an expert on those. I may have just totally misquoted how that actually works, but when Godzilla goes up against any of the other monsters, right? All of a sudden you're rooting for good Godzilla, right? Godzilla's the good guy all of a sudden for some reason, even though he's not like signed up on you. He didn't sign your declaration of agreement to align or whatever. But I don't know. We'll see it. I would love to see someone write it, though. I'd love to see it actually be written and commanded into battle, or be that partnership and to usher in the true Mandalore. I have a hard time believing we're going to get a new Mandalore at the end of this episode, though. Just unfortunately, I think that there's still more runway that we have to get to in order for that to feel right.
That's a question, so don't go too far.
Okay, yeah, but so anyway, so if we have a new Mandalore, then the Mythosaur is probably, has got to coincide with that. They've got to be lined up on that one, I think.
Right. So I'm going to say yes, but you brought up a good point, and I don't know how to get around it, honestly. It didn't take Boba Fett long to ride a Rancor, I don't even think he had a.
We don't see how much time passed in between, but we also saw he wanted to learn how, and he had said that they were going to work on it at the very least.
And that's more than we've gotten here. We're literally talking about a beast that's been not seen for thousands and thousands of years. And to your point, how does that happen? How does somebody just mount this thing and ride it into battle and save the day? I don't know, but it's Star Wars, and maybe Grogu talks to it.
Well, I think Qui-Gon Jinn in the chat's like, Grogu's got this.
But yeah, I mean, I would maybe. What was it? Book of Boba Fett. They showed him how he's able to kind of tame the Rancor, speak to it or whatever. So maybe there's an opportunity where he says, "Hey, look, dude, you need to let my mom ride you so that you can, she can win," kind of thing. So it didn't sound right, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
There's jokes in there, yeah.
There's jokes in there, but yeah, I mean, that would be a way to explain it. It's not unheard of. I mean, my gosh, how many Jedi have spoken to beasts and tamed them through the Force, right? So that could be one way, but if it's purely just like, we don't know how large this thing is as well. It looked pretty massive, maybe to the size of the creature, the Godzilla creature that we saw that killed the hobo Mandalorians sail barge thing. Sled pirates. So it could be something like that big. And if it's that big, like, where do you sit? Like, I don't even know what this looks like, right? Did it already have a saddle on it? There's a lot of questions here, but
right.
I do want it to show up, and I do want somebody to ride this dang thing and be the Mandalore. So I'm saying yes, and it's Bo-Katan.
Those all seem reasonable to me. I mean, Lauren had a good point, though. She says it also sounded like the Rancor wasn't as hard to train since the Rancor imprinted on him as a baby.
That's a good point.
And that's a good point, yeah. The imprinting was really important in order to make that bond.
Yeah. Let's see. What else? There's a whole bunch of chat in here. Grogu's got this. Bo will ride it, says Dale. And I will throw this up because it made me laugh. I hope Axe rides the Mythosaur. Said no one ever except me. Thank you, Peter Griffin. I mean, we can count on Peter Griffin of all people to say something like that.
That's right. Steph was asking, she says, I'm a little confused. It's an aquatic creature. How would they be right above the ground? We don't think it's actually an aquatic creature. It seems like it's more of a dinosaur type of thing, like reptilian, but maybe it's amphibious as well. And it's in the in the caverns there. So it sounds like it can live in both worlds, both above and below ground.
Even in the world between. Okay. Yeah.
It might be able to exist in the world between worlds. Maybe that'll be the post-credit teaser.
Stop it. Okay, enough. All right, here we go. Next question. All right, we're going to move to the armorer. And the first question, I've got two here for her, but will she turn out to be the spy? So now you've had some time to think about this. We've all had time to think about this. Have you changed your mind at all? Where do you land today and with 3 days left?
I'm going to have to go with no. Like, I don't like who I think the spy is, but I would rather it be the armor. I just don't see it. Again, when would she have had the opportunity to make those arrangements and make the calls? I think the hole in that one is that did she know that the Empire was there on Mandalore, and that's why she was so against it the entire time? But something, and again, her attitude really did shift at one point with Bo-Katan, and that makes me feel uncomfortable. So I'm not confident in this one at all. But when I look at just the technical ability to coordinate and do anything with the Empire, the armorer's opportunity is just so minuscule that it's really difficult to really make that connection and get there without some exposition of how they did it. And again, if they brought the armor, if they said it was the armor, they would have to give us that exposition. I think they probably would. But again, they would have to actually tell us. It wouldn't make any sense, right? From her perspective, technologically, story-wise, it makes a lot of sense. I wish it was her, but I just don't think it will be.
Yeah. So I really struggled with this over the last 3-4 days since Thursday. And this weekend, I actually went back and watched half of season 2. I watched the Book of Boba Fett episodes with her. And then I watched all of season 3 with the exception of the last episode, like watched it all over again. And what I said originally, I think still holds true. And I'm probably more reaffirmed by this. Narratively speaking, it doesn't make sense. Like, there's so many freaking opportunities where even if you take I know, and I'm not poo-pooing on your idea, Galen. Galen mentioned, again, she's a biblical spy, the Knight of Faith. And I get that. I think that is the strongest argument for her, but this is just not what Star Wars does. Like in other series and things like that, we have the zealots, the people that feel like they're following blindly. There's just not even enough for us to believe that that's who she is. Like, she goes, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say other than after a second watch of this, I feel stronger that she's definitely not the spy. Now, as far as who I think it is, I don't think I have that question here. No, I don't. as far as who I think it is, I still am landing on Axe Wolves. I think the Hobo Mandos have kind of moved up a little bit for me. Like there's some reasons why I think they could do it. Certainly if they wanted, all they wanted was food or whatever, they could have been doing it for those types of reasons. So, but I'm still landing with Axe Wolves. I still don't understand why he left after Bo-Katan told him not to leave. He doesn't have a ship. There's no communication. It makes absolutely no freaking sense in his character. He is not that character that's going to go, I'm going to go save everybody and get reinforcements. That's not who this dude is. So it's out of character for him to do it. So he's my prime suspect in terms of who the spy is.
Right. And we know the dissonance he has with Bo. We know that he got a bit addicted to the power and the control that he had once he took over the fleet and once he took over the leadership mantle. He's still not happy with the arrangements that they have. And him and Paz seem to have come to some sort of mutual agreement after fighting it out a little bit, kind of, maybe, not really. We don't know. And now Paz is dead, so we really don't know. But I mean, because I think they both grabbed Grogu and took off, right?
Yes.
I think that was him and Paz that did that, right? So, maybe they found common ground in that respect. But it just, that characters like Axe Wolves don't just fall into line and then they're your number two and they're your, they're the person you can give the absolute confidence to. It's to say, okay, I need you to take care of this. I need you to go get help. I need you to go do these things. And again, you're right. He just kind of did it. He just did it on his own, right? Yeah. I can make it. I can do it. Now, granted, that is very Star Wars. I mean, we have lots of characters that do it all the time and somehow they make it happen. But it seems really convenient. And again, you look at opportunity, Axe Wolf would have had a lot of opportunity. Now, there's some inconsistencies with the privateer aspect of things, and we're not the Empire. They do have loyalty. They do have honor. So if you're going to believe, again, if we come back to believe what they tell you, well, that's what they were telling us in those episodes, right? When they were, on the one with Plaisir 5.
Yeah.
So do we believe that, or do we believe some of the other things that they had told us too, and just that he can't follow Bo at all? There's just no opportunity for him to be able to get over that hurdle because of everything that's meant. And he just fundamentally doesn't believe in bringing the tribes together, or really doesn't really care about Mandalore in general. And we don't really get that feel for him in that regard. At least with the armor, it feels like there's some respect for it all. But again, why has she been so active with, eluding the Empire? Is it truly just fear of, being exposed in that angle? Or is it, no, they made an agreement to stay out of each other's way?
Yeah. I mean, if she was doing it now, it's kind of lazy writing, because I guess she's had a lot of opportunities to do this. And, but either way, if it turns out to be her, fine. I'm all in. Like, I can get on board with it, right? So I'm not saying it's not a bad idea. Okay, let's talk about the next question for the armorer is, now this question is, what will happen with the armorer when she gets to the fleet? Like they've showed this, they had those 2 shots, right? Establishing shots that she was approaching the fleet. We know Gideon has kind of sent off the interceptors, which I assume are going to hit to the, well, they are, because he says, we're going to take out your fleet now, et cetera. So I figure we're going to have a space battle. Where I was kind of leading with this question and leaning into with this question was whether or not we would see someone like her lead the space battle. I was surprised she can even fly. I mean, I guess I should assume that all Mandalorians can, but just how good is she? And do you think she would be the person, again, assuming that she's not the spy or a traitor of some sort? Do you think is she the right person that would lead this battle? Because I don't know who else is even up there right now, except maybe Boba Fett, right? Wouldn't that be something if he just shows up in Slave One and then starts leading the troops and inserts himself as a quote Mandalorian?
Yeah, but why would they follow Boba? I mean, it's the same issue, right? Then why would you find some guy that follows some guy that just showed up and he's a clone? It's because they're going to recognize his voice, type of thing. I like the idea of the armor showing us why she is a leader in the family and in the clan, period. We get the forge aspect of it. We get the armor. We get this very, we've talked about biblical type of things. You get this spiritual leader of the group. And so I get that part. That part is fundamental to the Children of the Watch and to Mandalorians in general. But I would love to see, this is my leader in battle. She's commanded other groups, like you take a strike force and you go recover the child, right, for Ragnar. But I want to see her get her hands dirty in that kind of way. I thought we were finally going to see it, though, when she went on this away team, if you will, the strike team, the scout team. Mm-hmm. That we wanted her to be able to finally show what she's made of. And then they completely no, we're going to give you a bunch of doubt instead. So if she's not the spy, then we have a fantastic opportunity for her to truly show her leadership capabilities and why people follow her and why she is just this Billy Badass type of character, right? That we've made her up
Yeah.
to be. We've seen her in action, right? We've seen her
Yeah. Right.
podcasts and destroy stormtroopers and everything else, right? We've seen her take action and be amazing. But let's see it on like a actual battlefront, not just a strike force type of type of atmosphere. I would really love for us to double down in that space of this is why she is who she is and why her journey is important too. And again, we start to see more of that journey for her, and it does feel genuine and true.
Yeah, I like that. Like, it's her character. I'm not going to call. I don't want to say one dimensional, but we've seen that one dimension of her where she's using her tools and whooping on people all day long. Right? We get it. She's really good at that. But then giving us another aspect of her tactical prowess, right? In space of all things. And then really, I was thinking too, like there's nothing but like almost dead people and a lot of Mandalorians who are red shirts for the most part, but showing, and I don't want to go so far and say it's like Thrawn or whatever, but showing us, like to your point, that that tactical awareness, the strategy that goes into it, and turning like these troops into like this fighting machine just simply through her leadership and strategic skills. That would be a really cool dimension to see of her, because we don't think we've got that. Again, when I said I didn't know she could fly. Like, I always saw her because she wears that, that fur kind of the shoulder pad thing.
Right.
She almost comes across as like a very primitive kind of person, right? Stuck in their old ways. She's not really into the tech stuff. She's already made a comment about that when she makes her armor. But seeing her like, bust her chops up there in space, what I think would be really awesome, and give her a lot more depth than I think we've ever given her in the past.
Yeah, and we've got Galen and Charlie in the chat talking about the connection between the armor and Boba Fett. And if we want to make that connection, that's totally cool. I think we would just need to be able to see what that connection was and why, like how it's already established, if it's already there. They just have to bring us up to speed, because I don't think we've had any kind of connection with them so far, right? So I like the idea of it. If we want to integrate Boba Fett, I think that's a way to do it, especially, and again, you can continue her, her progress of being more open-minded, of not just Children of the Watch. If that's the angle, someone like Boba Fett, who doesn't fit in any of these worlds, for the most part, right? Being a clone and being a genetic, pure genetic clone from Jango Fett, undoctored in any kind of way, then we would need to see that exposition of how they would, if they already know each other, how and why. But if they don't, why is it okay to get his help now? Yeah, they might be desperate. That would be fantastic. This would be a way for Boba Fett to show up, even if he's doing it without really their coordination or anything. He just kind of turns the tide. That's one way of doing it too. But yeah.
Okay, well, sticking with the Gideon questions here, or actually moving to Gideon questions, I should say. Moving to Gideon questions. Let's start with the real softball one. Will Gideon get the Darksaber back?
No.
Who put this question? That's a stupid question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think he will. I just don't. I think it's. Yeah, I just don't like the idea of him getting it. I think it's the one thing he wants. So have him continue to get close, maybe. But I think Bo-Katan, clearly the leader, and it just does not escape her grasp. And she definitely just doesn't hand it over and surrender. I think she's learned that lesson. So he would have to truly win it from her in combat.
Yeah. And
at this point, I don't see that happening necessarily, but I do see a square off, or whatever it is, a showdown. A showdown happening though, and I would love to see it between him and her. We've seen Moff Gideon and Din Djarin. Now let's see him go up against Bo-Katan, and have him have some weapon that she would be able to use the Darksaber against him on. So it's kind of the flip flop of the fight that we had previously.
I think it's no, for all the reasons you said. The reason this question even made it into the list was because in the last show, we had talked about how he was no longer really concerned about the child, right? When he had the child in front of him and he had Darksaber in front of him, he said, "Give me back my sword," kind of thing, right? I don't even care about the kid anymore. So it seems like he's moved past that for now, at least. Maybe he got what he needed. Maybe he's got other force sensitives and stuff going on with midichlorians or whatever he needed Grogu for at the very beginning. But he does seem to be hell-bent on this sword. And while I think it's still something he definitely wants and is your point, is going to go all out for it, I just can't see it switching hands again. Otherwise, it turns into kind of this comical thing where like, oh, now this person has it. Oh, now this person has it. And I think we're done switching hands here with the Darksaber. So,
yeah, I think that's where I'm coming from. Like it's just passing around and that type of thing. Because if it goes to Gideon, then I think Gideon would need to keep it and he would survive.
Yeah.
And I don't know that he makes it out of this next episode, to be honest with you.
Well, we're going to get to that question in a little bit, and we're going to go back to the final hype show because you made a prediction on that.
Okay.
But before we do, what about will the Beskar guards, stormtroopers, what I meant to put, turn out to be Gideon clones?
I don't think we will get any kind of clarity around that at all. And I am totally fine with that because I want these to remain these are the Praetorian guards, right? Praetorian guards.
No, not the Praetorian. I meant the Beskar ones. Where this is the comment.
The new improved stormtrooper type of.
Yeah, where he said they now have me in them.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. All right, you take this one.
Yes. What about you? What do you think?
Touche.
No, I do, because it's my own stupid theory. At least how I read that, because I went back and listened to it, and he does definitively say that there is something about him in there, right? And so I'm going to take him knowing that he was cloning things. Now, it could not. I don't necessarily think they have to show like his face, like to the extent of what Jango Fett did, where they all look like him. I think that would be great. However, if they just explain it that his DNA is in there because he's narcissistic and he feels like he's the prime alpha kind of person that this galaxy needs, mixed with Jedi DNA and the technology from the Mandalorians, I think that is. Now, I would love for them to take a helmet off and they show it and you're like, whoa, freak out moment that it looks like him, maybe a younger version or something. I wouldn't think he would make him as old as he is now. That would be kind of weird. But yeah, I'm going to go yes. So there, I've stalled long enough. Now you got to go. What do you got?
All right, well, I'll just be the converse of that. So I'll say no. I don't think we'll find out. I don't think we'll get a helmet reveal or anything like that. Because again, what he had said in the line though was that in addition to what he had said, you're absolutely right. He said the missing element was basically him. And when you look at the armor he's wearing the actual Dark Trooper armor. Like you can hear the heavy footsteps like we did with the Dark Troopers. And they do that zoom up of his lower body as he's walking as well. So you get the idea that he is actually wearing the Dark Trooper armor. I don't know. The armor is the Beskar alloy that the stormtroopers, for lack of a better word, the Beskar troopers, you may call them. But are they that? I don't know, because I think that the end game was to infuse the best of each of these societies, right? To invest the best, or to get the Jedi for their force abilities, right? The Mandalorians for their armor and maybe their weaponry in general, and those types of aspects, right? Yeah. So we're still missing that component. I mean, he did mention the cloners as well, but we're still missing that Jedi component. And we know that they have really failed with whatever is going on. Now we're given a much more clear hint that maybe they've made a lot more progress, because the VATs that we saw last episode seem to be much more clear, right? They seem to be more, I don't know, a closer representation of something that appears to be a finished product rather than the mangled messes that we saw in Navarro.
Yeah.
And granted, we don't know how much time had passed before that, when that facility was really super active, but they would have had to make a lot of progress in a very short period of time without Pershing. And so that part confuses me a little bit about how they would have made that huge leap in progress. And there's really no other identification of it in the meantime. So I'm going to go ahead and just say no on that regard. I just don't think we'll get any kind of confirmation. I think they'll just skip more to the story aspect of things, and they'll just skip this trooper thing and leave it to be more ambiguous.
Yeah, that's fair. By the way, as part of when I was doing the rewatch this weekend, the very last thing that Pershing says when he's given his TED talk, he says that he was working on combining the DNA or whatever from multiple beings, right? Just he basically reaffirmed, or I guess Gideon reaffirms what his work was. So
right. Yeah,
definitely we're doing something in that. Yep. Best of this, best of that, mix them all together, and we got a rat-tat-tat.
Right, but they hadn't gotten there, and I think that's the key element of this. Yeah. Now, granted, that doesn't stop them from putting a stormtrooper or a clone of Gideon in a stormtrooper or Beskar outfit, right? Mm-hmm. That can all happen. But if that was the end game, then that's the end game, right? And they need Pershing, and they don't have enough to go on there quite yet.
Maybe they all have his eyes, but nothing else. And he's like, look at his eyes.
They're all Omega clones.
Are the eyes? Okay, enough. All right.
Omega.
Oh, shut up. Okay, does Gideon die?
I'm going to say yes, yeah.
Well, that's consistent with what you said on the final hype show. So congratulations. If I had an applause loaded in here, I'd do it. But yeah, you did say he would die this season. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, it feels like I want him to die at the hands of Thrawn, right? Like, I want maybe he gets mortally wounded, or he escapes and he doesn't really show up next season, and his presence is kind of unknown for a little bit. That would be kind of cool too. I don't know that I want him to die, but I feel like he is going to die, though, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, he's been the big bad, right? So he's
Yeah.
been the consistent evil presence that we keep fighting against. So it makes sense that it would be difficult to understand if he dies. Okay, well, who's next? I mean, who's the big bad guy, right? I mean, we have the obvious suspects, but the Empire is in this weird state of disarray. We have the Shadow Council. Does it all point to Thrawn? Does that clear the road for Thrawn? You know, potentially, yes. Maybe more of a Paleon or a Hux or something to fill in that role. I think those were probably just more cameo based. But he's been around long enough now that I think you have to do something with them, unfortunately. You know, how long can you keep drawing this out? I love your idea, though. I think it would be really cool to see. It's more the infighting of things. Now, I don't think Thrawn goes and kills other Imperial officers. He usually captures them, throws them in jail, lets somebody else handle them. So I think that would be a little out of character in that regard. But the idea that they would have the conflict and that's how it would be resolved would be interesting. Because let's be honest, the Mandalorians don't necessarily care. Well, that's not true. The Mandalorians do care because they hold Gideon personally responsible for Mandalore.
Yeah, I mean, they blew their planet up.
Yeah. Gideon dies. Double
After
down.
all that.
Double down.
It just, yeah, that was a nice transition there. From I don't know to yes, kill him. I
was trying to give your theory some credibility in my head and work through it a
has
little bit.
Credibility. Right? Thank you, sir.
Well, no, I mean, I was trying to work through it with my head to give it the ample exploration that you deserve.
The respect that it needs. Yes.
I wasn't going to go that far, but yes.
The other part of it is like, not only that, so I don't even think Thrawn necessarily has to kill him. I just want to see Gideon grovel when Thrawn shows up. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see him shaking in his boots.
I agree with that.
Thrawn holding him accountable for all the crap that he's been saying. You've been talking stuff about me in that crazy theory that I had that somehow he's been keeping him in check and now allowing him to come in so that he could assert himself as the Imperial leader, the new leader. I'd love for all that to kind of blow back on his face at some point. So I don't want him to die for that alone. Like, I want him to go through all of that and then kill him, in horrible ways at that point. No, maybe not that bad, but I do want him to go through that because I think he's earned it from Thrawn. And I think we would all agree that Thrawn, we hold him in such a high regard because he is so, he's such an interesting character in Star Wars. Like, we don't have anything comparable to him. And that's why he's a massive carryover from Legends because he was just so fantastic.
Yeah, I'm trying to look in the chat to see if we've got any consensus here. Music Train says he does not die.
I threw that one up.
Yeah, Dale. Okay, yeah. And then Dale said Gideon gets captured again, but Karsa and Zeb drag him straight to the tribunal, but Thrawn gets him out and kills him later.
Kills him later. Yeah.
So I guess that's technically he survives. I guess that's he does not die. So yeah. It sounds like
he lives to die another day. There we go.
There you go. Thanks, James Bond. Yeah. So so again, maybe this is sounding like people don't want Gideon to die, or they're not ready to look at a post Gideon type of Mandalorian show.
Yeah, not yet. Not for me, anyways. Okay, we're gonna move to Bo-Katan, and after this will be Grogu is on deck, and then we'll wrap it up with Din Djarin here. So Bo-Katan. Okay, softball question: will Bo-Katan use the Darksaber? And if so, can you elaborate on what that would look like?
Yes, she will use it, and she will wave it around wildly, and use it to kill people.
Can you be a little more specific?
She will wave it around with her right hand.
Okay.
And kill people. No, I think they'll have another confrontation, another fight. I think she'll use it against Gideon. I think this is the fight that we all want. I think I want a Gideon Bo-Katan fight. And like I said before, the inverse of the fight that we got at the end of season 2 with Gideon and Din Djarin, right?
Mando, yeah.
Yeah.
It was that one? I thought that was in season 2, right?
Yeah, it was the Luke Skywalker episode, right? So that's what I want. I want that inverse of it. I want her to wield the Darksaber and for Gideon to be on the defensive with it. Again, trying that tension of, is he going to win it back from her? Is she really worthy of it? Who is the better fighter? So I think, yes, she'll use it. And I think she'll use it in a fight with Moff Gideon.
Okay. I say yes, she's going to pull it out. I think it's a given. She's going to use it. I'd love to see it. We'll get to the Gideon thing here in a second. But in my head, it's going to be used on the Praetorian guards. And I want to see what's going to happen when their weapons clash when that clashes with the Praetorian guards' weapon. I want to see which wins. Because, the Praetorian guards that we see in The Last Jedi were able to deflect the lightsabers for both, Kylo Ren / Ben Solo and Rey Skywalker. So Maybe it's an earlier version. I don't know what kind of crystals are in there. I got a lot of questions about the weapons they're using, right? If they really are kind of an extension of what we saw or a precursor to what we see in Last Jedi. But I do want to, I feel like the Praetorian Guards are such a threat that something like the Darksaber has to be used against them unless Grogu is going all out with the Force, because I just can't see Mandalorians unless they swarm these guys, right? That may be a way that they can take them out. Otherwise, I don't see how anybody's going to stop these guys. So I'd love to see it in that scenario. But this segues into the next question I had, which is what you were talking about. Will Bo-Katan fight Moff Gideon? I feel like this is a fight that is long overdue. It feels, if Bo-Katan is going to be crowned the Mandalore and she wins this whole thing, gets her planet back, it feels like this fight has to happen because, like we said earlier, he's responsible for all the mess that they're in right now. So it feels like this is inevitable, in my opinion. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is the resolution that she needs individually. I think this is what the resolution of their people need. I think, to fight Moff Gideon one-on-one and to win. And we had some folks in the chat. Yeah, you're highlighting it right now. And the Mandalorians have to kill Gideon to get that resolution from Galen there. And he had mentioned before that, the Mythosaur can off Gideon. So that kind of different perspective there of whether or not,
right.
Does it mean something for the Mythosaur to do it, or does one of the Mandalorians need to do it to really get that final resolution, that final, sigh of relief that we have finally lifted this curse from our people and we've cleansed it from top to bottom and we feel like we've done it. And I think it's Bo-Katan specifically that has to be the one to do it. So when I look at if Moff Gideon were to get killed by another person individually, I think it almost has to be Bo-Katan at this point with the Darksaber.
It's almost like we're playing
in the library. Yeah, this is Clue.
Clue. That's what I was gonna say. It sounds like Clue. It's Moff Gideon with the candelabra in the library, and then maybe. Okay. So, all right, I'm with you there. Well, this is an easy one. I think. Will Bo-Katan live?
Right. Yeah, she'll live. Yeah, we need Bo-Katan. Okay. I mean, I think the whole season has been really about her growth. So I think this is a kind of a softball in there.
Well, so going back to the final hype episode, which again is the episode we do before the season starts, we had said that we actually called Paz dying. Like we both said it, that he was likely going to die. We talked about whether or not Bo-Katan would die, and I think we both agreed that she wouldn't die, but she could be on the chopping block because depending on how the series went, maybe she brought everybody together sooner, and then she sacrifices her life. It's very tropey for them to do something like that. Right. That would really suck if she did die, given what she's been through. Why would they put her through the paces of getting a second opportunity, a second chance, and then biting it this far into the season now? Like I have no doubt that she lives at this point. If I'm not ruling that out, I'd say there's a 1% chance they would do this because Star Wars has screwed me over so many times by killing off characters that you felt like just finally made it. Ben Solo, and this wouldn't be the first time. So if they can do it to him, they can do it to anybody else. They can do it to anybody. So
maybe they would give her some monologue at the very end.
Yeah, you're becoming so predictable when it comes to Ben Solo, and I like that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Okay, so we both agree that she lives. So here's probably the quintessential question of all this, and it's I buried it with the Bo-Katan stuff because it's relevant to her, but it also includes Din Djarin, and that is this question: will Bo-Katan or Din Djarin become the Mandalore?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of do they need the Mandalore specifically, which I think they are looking for the Mandalore. So yes, and I think it would be Bo-Katan. It's difficult to see a path for Din Djarin right now. He has the respect, I think, in many ways.
Yeah.
But they have just continued to just elevate Bo-Katan throughout the season. And then he reaffirmed it at the very end of last week, right? I serve you, Lady Kryze. And there's multiple people who have said that, right? And they give her that respect. They give the bow. They have the hand over their chest. Just all the signs point to she's the leader. That's where everyone is coming around. Even the armorer has said this is the person who's going to bring us together. So how is there an opportunity for anybody else to be the Mandalore is a difficult path to get to in that regard. I'm not saying there's not ways to it. Din Djarin is an honorable character. I think it would have the opportunity to do it. I think the armorer is another character that could be the Mandalore in that respect. But I think, again, pretty dogmatic. Would the rest of the clan, the non-Children of the Watch, follow her? Probably not. At least not longer term. That seems to be conflicting. She's the one that walks the line, right? She walks at both paths. One in this world and in this world over here. So I think she's like the only one at this point who would be the one true Mandalore. No one else has really stepped into that role, and they've definitely not positioned anyone from a storytelling aspect who would be able to fill that role, without really losing your audience, I think.
Yeah. And I think there's some people that are kind of upset now that we are not getting Din Djarin as the potential heir to the throne of Mandalore. I think it's fine. I think so. Going back to the final hype show, we had said that it would be Bo-Katan. We went on and on about this stuff, and I think we both landed and said, okay, it's going to be Bo-Katan. That's who we feel in our hearts should be it, because of all the reasons we've already talked about. I think I was still kind of pushing for, in my head, I still wanted Din Djarin to do it. Again, now that we're this far into it, to your point, there's really not a path for him. Like and then I said, well, I think what I said was I want him to help. Like there was a difference between him bringing somebody to rule Mandalore as the Mandalore, and that is different than him being the Mandalore, right? They're not mutually exclusive in any way. So yes, short answer is I think she is definitely going to be the Mandalore. I think it'll be the help with everybody else. So that gets her there. Where this goes, you're just kind of looking ahead. I think they're doing this because I think they're going to have to establish that if we do get a return of Thrawn, we get a return of the Katana fleet or whatever that presence is, the Imperial threat that's going to exist, they're going to need people that can fight them. And I don't think we're going to be able to lean heavily on the New Republic. We'll probably get the heroes jump in there at some point, but having like Mandalore even at 25%, right, is going to be enough to kind of help, make an impact on whatever that final battle is, or that huge battle that I'm in my head is coming when we get to the Dave Filoni movie, whenever that may be. So.
Exactly. And Galen had touched on this in the chat too. This is about resolutions to current storytelling. And I agree with that. I think this is much like a Bad Batch as well, right? Bad Batch, the first season, we really set up that, Omega had to find her way in the team. The team had to accept her. The team had to trust her, the relationship with her and Hunter. But when we got to season 2, that was all put to bed. That was already defined. It was a constant. It was a given. We've already resolved that. We're not going to go revisit that doubt, those insecurities. I think very much for season 3 Mandalorian is about resolving this of who is the leader, what is the direction of the Mandalorians, what is it that we are going to set these people up for other content coming later. I mean, we presume there's a season 4 Mandalorian coming out. If there's a Book of Boba Fett 2, how would they work into some of that? Any of the other content? What's the big event? We need this to be resolved. We said we were going to do this at the beginning of the season. Let's finish it out. Let's do it. So from that respect, I absolutely agree. We need to resolve the season, even if we leave a little bit of a teaser for something else later on. Totally cool with that. But we need to feel like the season meant something and we found resolution at the end of the day.
We're gonna move on. We're gonna move into the Grogu questions now. And originally this said, will Grogu fire IG-12? And I thought that sounds very Apprentice. Not what I'm going for. Will Grogu blast everyone with IG-12? Are we going to see Grogu, are we going to see IG-12 as we saw him in season 1, tearing up the place like the Wild Bunch, right? But only Grogu in the suit doing it. Because I think there's some pros and cons to that.
Yeah, there's no weapons on IG-12 right now, though. So they would have to give him a blaster to do it. And those little claw things, it's like it's like the claw at the arcade.
Yeah, the claw
it doesn't seem. Yeah, it doesn't really seem all
crane
that.
Crane
game there. Yeah, it doesn't really seem like it's all that articulated. You can't really do very specific things. So, and Din Djarin would have to give him. Well, Din's not there now. Give him all the blasters. Just give him everything. Dad's not here. We're gonna go have some fun. Load up, kid. But yeah, I don't think there's any weapons on IG-12, so they'd have to actually do that. And again, the cool thing about Grogu is the weapon. Right. I would want to see Grogu reach out with the Force and do things with the Force. Doesn't have to do anything crazy with the Force, but just him being that, he's that tipping point. He's the one that can turn the tide of battle because he can elevate someone. He can push something. He can help protect, right? We've seen this in all of the seasons so far. Let Grogu be Grogu. My feeling is we don't necessarily have to have him do anything special, even though he has, mobility now. And we don't have to watch that awkward running that he does. Had to slip that
It's not awkward. It's cute. He's a baby. Leave him alone. Stop picking on the baby. I want to see this. They brought him back. They brought IG-12 back. Okay. So what is synonymous with IG-12? And for me, it's him firing in all different directions. Now, granted, that was the programming, right? That was the conscious of it, which according to Grief Karga, that's going to be Grogu. And I started thinking, well, could he really do it? And I'm thinking, well, I guess he could. If somebody's force sensitive, they would be the only person that would be able to drive something like that, to be able to shoot at all different directions because they can sense where it's coming from. Now, granted, I'm giving a lot of credit here to Grogu. I don't know where he is in terms of his force development and training, but if there was any one character that could pilot this thing and be able to use the arms and the different weapons in different directions, I think it would be him. And like you said, I feel like he's probably emotionally charged, and he didn't really get that opportunity to save Dad in the last episode, which I thought was kind of a slight, a misstep. So I'm all for it. Like, I'd love to see him go, all guns out, literally blazing and firing on these Beskar troopers, and then maybe ultimately getting to the very end where they're fighting Praetorian guards or fighting Moff Gideon, whoever that may be, and then kind of switching to using the Force because, maybe that those weapons really aren't going to be very effective. So I don't know why else they would stick the baby in here other than just to give him the mobility and not have to worry about, him running around in his little carriage thing all day long.
Yeah, and I think you're going to need to pay Dale double whatever you're paying him in the chat.
Why?
Because Dale's like, give him the Darksaber, and then he comes back he pulls out Yoda's saber. He's been hiding it all along.
Right. Oh, yes. See, and I said he was going to do that. Dale, you're 100% right. I said he was going to have it and pull it out. I think he'll dual wield the Darksaber as well as Yoda's lightsaber. Hey, while we're on the topic of absurd,
he did not select that talent tree. He cannot dual wield. Sorry.
On the topic of the weird and funny, Ben Stone says Frog Lady will save the day riding a Purgo, carrying a Mythosaur into battle, ridden by Jack Black.
There you go.
So didn't see that one coming, but thank you. Okay, so where did you land on that one? Sorry.
On Ben's? I mean, I think it's totally legit.
No, not Ben. Stop it. No, not Ben. Stop encouraging him. I'm talking about the Grogu firing. You said no?
No, I like the idea of Grogu being more the natural aspect of it without having to use artificial type of weapons or anything like that. So I like Grogu hands-on, using his size to his advantage too. Is he going to, if they rescue Din Djarin, is he a part of that? Is he able to get in behind enemy lines? Does he get captured? Things like that. I think it just makes it more compelling for Grogu to be out of the suit. But I'm with you though. Why give him the suit if you're not going to do anything with it though?
That's where I'm stuck. Like, otherwise it's just gimmicky and a toy. It's like a toy money grab.
I'm with you. It does feel like if you give it to him, you've got to do something with it. Again, we keep saying this over and over and over. This is what Star Wars says. You put something on the screen, expect something from it. But so I don't know. They've stripped it of all its usefulness, right? Except maybe the ability to go in and take damage and soak damage and things like that.
Yeah, arm that kid up, man. Let's go. Give him thermal detonators and give him all the Mando stuff. Just outfit him and let him go.
We're going to go easy. We're just going to give you the head cannon stuff. We'll just let you shoot, shoot things out of the nose or whatever it was for IG-11.
Okay, so if you're not on board with Grogu firing weapons and using IG-12 as IG-11 would fire things off, the next question is, will Grogu use the Force, right? So maybe this speaks to what you were kind of talking about, seeing him in his natural element. And then I guess the follow-up question is, and I know we've already talked about it, but where would he have the opportunity to use the Force? And would it be in a life-saving kind of situation, considering that Dad is currently captured?
Yeah, I think so. I would love to see him use the Force. We've really not seen Grogu use the Force in any kind of meaningful way except stealing candies or
pushed that one
jumping.
He pushed that one alien thing out.
That's what I was saying. Since the beginning of the season, right? That's the only instance we've really had so far. And so I would love for that to come back around, that Grogu does get to exhibit his Force abilities, gets to do it in a meaningful way. I think it would be great to see some of the healing come back. Like someone does get wounded and he's able to heal them, and then they're able to show back up. So Bo-Katan gets injured and he heals her, and then she comes back up to Moff Gideon and says, ha ha ha, and is able to take care of business from there. I like that kind of thing though. It's just fun. It's not necessarily great storytelling all the time, but it's just fun. But I would love to see Grogu be the one to get back there and help save Din Djarin. Again, kind of repaying the favors in some kind of ways, although he saved Din Djarin early in the season with Bo-Katan in some ways. So, I like the idea, though, that the little kid keeps coming back to save Dad some kind of way. Even though he's part of the mission, he's kind of the one that does it, right? He's the small one. He's the infiltrating one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to see him use the Force. I think he will. I'd like to see him use it and we've seen him use it in different ways, even when he was untrained, right? At one point, he pushed all that fire back during season 1.
Yeah, he
I
had
think.
so many epic moments kind of when he was exploring things, healing Grief Karga, right? So
Yeah. So I mean, he's got the potential to do a lot of different things, even stuff that we've never even seen before. We don't know what kind of training Luke was able to bestow upon him. We saw bits and pieces of that. We knew it was a lot longer than we initially thought. It wasn't like a week with Luke. It was like months with Luke. So, given how much Yoda was able to train Luke during that time, who knows? We'll see. But I would like to see him. I think it would be poetic if it was saving Din, considering it was kind of the reverse of that, right? Exchanging the opportunity, returning the favor of saving his father. In my head, it's using him against the Praetorian guards because I just think they're such a lethal threat that something like the Force is probably going to have to play into subduing those guys or taking them out in some way. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think it's a Gideon. I mean, I could see where he would want to fire off on Gideon as well, because Gideon did some terrible things to him, right? And he was kidnapped by him at one point and tormented by him. So
seeing him force push someone away in some kind of way, that's always kind of the easiest one to do, the most basic and straightforward, so those things are always opportunities. But yeah, I like that idea too, of not getting revenge on Gideon, but protecting someone from Gideon and being in the middle and inserting himself in the middle to be able to do something this time where he was unable to last time.
So will Grogu's chest shield save him? This is the little buckler that's hanging around his Flavor Flav thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think this was in the chat as well. I think Ben said, a serious question, does Grogu's Beskar chainmail shirt come into play this episode? So an extension of that.
Oh, the chainmail shirt too, yeah.
Yeah. So, but kind of both, right? Does his armor actually come into play? Does he take a stray blaster bolt to the chest, or something like that? I think that why not? You gave it to him. He can barely walk. I mean, this is why he needs IG-12, is because he can't walk anymore.
He can't walk around with the medallion around his neck.
Right, yeah. So, again, you gave it to him. Why not let it play into it that he's doing something with the Force, and Gideon or someone else takes a crack shot at him, or it reflects or deflects and hits him for some reason, but that's what saves his life. I think that would be really cool. I think that would be a great way to at least justify having this big old thing on your chest. And again, just to be able to say, this is what, the weapons are part of your religion. The armor is part of your religion as well. The Beskar is a part of your people. And for him to truly understand and appreciate that in a very personal way, not just seeing it across the board of all of his people around him, but actually be able to experience that, and appreciate that, I think would, and not that we get a lot of context for Grogu, we don't get any dialogue, of course, but you would at least be able to see some of that, and you'd be able to gather some of that for future reference points.
I'm with you on all accounts. I think they've signaled it. They showed it to us. There's a reason why they gave it to him. We've not seen the reason why. You can make an argument that at some point in
no one asked for it either, right? She just kind of made it for him. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't ask for it, right? So maybe in season 10, if we don't see it now, we'll come to understand the significance and the importance, right? But until then, I think the more reasonable, logical explanation is that we're going to see this in this last episode here. So again, it could be, like you said, it deflecting bolts, or it deflects a bolt in some way, or there's like some kill shot that keeps him alive. It could be the Praetorian guards. Maybe there's an opportunity there where they try to stab him, and luckily he's got that massive shield on his chest and it helps him. Or maybe it is the Beskar chainmail that helps him too, right? Maybe it's a combination of both. I just like, what do they get? His little outfit's going to be ripped to shreds if he goes through anything like this. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see like a little green Grogu unclothed but wearing chainmail.
Yeah, his total 80s muscle, what was it, like Arnold Schwarzenegger type of moment. Yeah, his cloak gets all shredded, so you just see him from the bare from the top, with the nail,
right?
And he flexes. He's like, yeah,
there you go. Pump some testosterone into this series here.
That's right.
Why don't you? Okay, so the last question I have, I don't think I have it queued up. I'll put it up here in a second, but we've already talked about it enough. Does Grogu rescue Din Djarin?
I'd like to see that. I don't know how I feel about yes or no, but yeah,
he doesn't have to be. Let me clarify. So in my head, he doesn't have to be the only one. I think that would be a cool story, but I just don't see unless he's in the IG-11 suit. I don't know that he has the capability to like pick him up and carry him out of there unless he's using the Force. So it doesn't have to necessarily be him, but I would like to see him, Bo-Katan, somebody else contribute to the rescue of Din Djarin.
Yeah, and I think he's definitely part of the hunting party, right? The party that goes back out to rescue him. And I don't think Bo-Katan would take that away from him either. I think that she would be like, you want to go save your dad? Like, I mean, he's there all the time anyway. And to be able to deny him that, I think Bo-Katan understands, like, no, she wouldn't deny him that opportunity. And she also knows what he can do. She's seen that he's special, so he can take care of himself in many ways. And I think she's bonded enough with Grogu that, I don't know, I think that's all reasonable. I think that's all possible. So I think, yes, I think he's part of any attempt to save Din Djarin if he's not even directly involved in the actual saving itself.
And yeah, I'll keep my answer short and sweet. Yes, I think he is a part of that rescue mission, either by himself or with others. The next question I have is, let's move to Din Djarin. I've only got a couple questions here, which seems kind of weird because he's kind of like the main star, but I think it all makes sense given the context of where we are in the season. But will Din Djarin be freed? Now, the only reason I'm posing this question is because, I mean, there could be a possibility that he's not, and we carry this over into season 4, right? I don't think he has to be rescued. And where I'm going with this is, I was really struggling. This is where this question came up, was I was struggling with what happens at the end of the series, like at the season. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Mandalore is liberated. Bo-Katan is now the queen again or the Mandalore. Let's just go that far, right? She's now the Mandalore once again, or for the first time. Where does this series go? Like, what is left to be resolved? And it doesn't have to be anything, but what we talked about earlier, as far as a cliffhanger, what if it's something like Din Djarin doesn't get rescued and his fate is unknown and we don't know where he's at? That would at least give us something to kind of push forward through with either Book of Boba Fett 2, maybe Boba Fett gets involved, Cobb Vanth gets involved at that point, or we roll it right into season 4 and that becomes kind of the mission between, Bo-Katan or certainly Grogu at that point.
Yeah, there's a part of me that definitely wants Din Djarin to be a part of this episode and not just the what's the thing they always call when they go, the MacGuffin. Yeah, the thing you have to go after. It's the Mandalorian. He was the original Mandalorian for the series, so it feels a little weird. And I think some of the fandom would probably torch Star Wars storytelling for this if they didn't have him in the episode and be a critical part of it, rather than just being the one that needed rescuing. I wouldn't be that extreme, but I would understand that to an extent too, of saying he's an integral part of this. It's the Mandalorians, and Din Djarin is one of the key ones in these moments. I understand wanting to accentuate Bo-Katan, but I would like to see him not only get rescued, but also be a part of this episode. And I understand that's a lot of things to get through to make that meaningful and not feel rushed. But these guys are really good at what they do, like Filoni and Favreau, so have a lot of faith in Rick Famuyiwa, of course. But I really hope that he's a part of it. I can see where maybe him being captured would be a cliffhanger going into another season. Honestly, it might make more sense if that was a Bo-Katan or someone like that, or even back to being a Grogu, if you wanted to go the cliffhanger route. But I think he does get saved. I think he is freed. I think he's a part of this episode at the very end, the climax aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that I even have an answer on this one. Like, I feel strongly on both sides about whether or not we need him back now. Does this give us something to kind of move into a season 4? So the question just came up: who's directing the last episode? It's Rick Famuyiwa again. He had the last 2 episodes, so I think he filmed them all. From what I understand, he filmed them together at one time, or back to back, or whatever. So I'm just gonna say yes. I think the obvious answer is he gets freed. What bothers me is, like, I just don't know where this series goes at this point. Like, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, they can completely come out of left field and come up with a totally different story at some point, right? That's fine. But I do like the idea of a cliffhanger. And if it's not, and I don't know that, I'm not even talking about an Easter egg of Thrawn, right? That I'm not even talking about something like that. I'm just talking about, like,
an actual cliffhanger.
Yeah, an actual cliffhanger. Like, what's left to do? What does that story look like? And yeah, that's where I'm at. So I'm going to say yes. The obvious answer is he's freed, but in my heart, I kind of want him not to. I want his fate to be unknown, because I think that would have a lot of people talking. Now, I don't want him dead. Like, let me be clear. I don't want him dead. I don't think he's going to die. I think there's no chance that he dies. It doesn't make sense that he would die. I don't even, I've seen people talk about he would sacrifice himself and this is going to bring the end of that. And I just don't buy into any of that stuff. Again, narratively speaking, it makes absolutely no freaking sense. So I'm not asking for him to be dead, but I would like for him to I would love for his fate to be unknown, because I think that would be really intriguing and give us a lot to discuss between now and whatever the next series is, because it suddenly becomes Ezra all over again, right?
We can have resolution around the Mandalore aspect of things and the Mandalorians and still have a cliffhanger with Din Djarin or really anybody else. So I think you can have best of both worlds in this case. And the reason why I'm kind of leaning towards wanting a cliffhanger for this is that we've gotten 2 seasons really without one for the most part. I don't really consider the first. I don't really consider those cliffhangers, to be honest with you. They're not like what we got with Bad Batch. What we got with Bad Batch was a bit more of a cliffhanger, right? Omega's gone. They've killed Tech. They leave you. She's in the lion's den. You don't know what's going to happen. So you have
Very
a lot of
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, you have uncertainty, right? You know there's something that comes next and they have to give it to you, but you don't really know what that resolution looks like. Now, it's maybe not a traditional one in that regard, like where someone, do they live or die, but you get the point. So I think Mandalorian, I think we're kind of ready for that moment. Like, it's okay to set up the next series as long as we get the resolution we need, but you can have both, I think, in this scenario.
Yeah. The next question, I'm just going to skip it. It was let me get your thoughts. I'll throw it up here again. But where will Din and Grogu go next season? So assuming they both live, do you even want to venture a guess as to what the heck happens in season 4 at this point?
I think we would table that one probably until after the episode and then see what happens and then go from there.
All right. You're chicken. You don't want to. No, I'm kidding.
No, we're speculating on the last episode, not next season.
I know. And this is we asked the question in the final hype show. I think we asked, where would the season go? How would this? I think we asked this question, like, how would season 3 end? Is what we asked, and we both agreed that was a really dumb question that I came up with then, and we're, I guess, saying the same thing now. So, fair point. Here's a very interesting one that I've seen a lot of people talking about, and it's one that I honestly think is going to happen. But will Din Djarin remove his helmet again in this episode? And here's a couple things. Let me just preface this real quick.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of discussion out there right now. If you go look for the articles about, Pedro Pascal's, what he, whether he wanted to be paid as a voice actor or a real actor, this is why he took his helmet off in season 1. And there's people out there that are, I think, falsely reporting that this happened in season 2. There's probably some truth in some of this stuff. I'm not saying there's not, but I don't think we've got the drama and the sensationalism that's being portrayed. So put all that aside, strictly from a storytelling perspective, regardless of what Pedro thinks or whatever else, is there a compelling storytelling reason why Din Djarin would remove his helmet, again, either on his own will or against his will? And I think that's probably where I'm leaning if it does come off. But what do you think?
How else would he kiss Bo-Katan?
Oh, there you go. Duh.
You're welcome, Internet.
Yeah, we're done. We're not talking about this anymore. No, I
mean, it's so I think there's always scenarios where he would remove his helmet. Now, we could really argue about if he wants to walk both worlds like Bo-Katan. The way the armor set it up is that he's really not positioned to do that already, but he could if he wanted to, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he could just go back for a dip in the waters too. That's all it takes to get redeemed, I guess. But he could do that in order to show his loyalty to Bo-Katan and show that we can cast off the old ways. We really can bridge something brand new. We can bring it all together and do something here. Let me show you and lead by example. I kind of like the idea of him not and adhering to those old worlds and that being the root for Bo-Katan, right? So that's the link to the Children of the Watch, if we want to keep calling them that. That's the link for her, that he is still true and he can be that character that the other parts of that faction can still look to and lean, like what Paz was doing, right? He looked at him for confirmation or affirmation, right? Is this okay? Can I really trust her? Those types of things. Is she someone that we can rally behind? And I think that's the one part of it, of him leaving his helmet on and not removing it at all. I think that element of it is really important for Bo-Katan while the clans are still trying to figure out what it means to be one unified Mandalore. And so having something like that can help really root and ground that while you figure that part out. Now, I like the idea of it being forcefully removed. I like that idea a lot, actually, because to me, Moff Gideon knows the buttons to push. And that would be one of the buttons to push, right?
Yeah, and I hate to. I mean, I loved everything you said, but I think I'm taking it more just a kind of vanilla jerk face Gideon approach. And like, if you had him like locked up, first thing I'd do is remove his helmet, right? Put that stress on him that now he's suddenly an apostate again. Although, to be fair, when the armor asked him, "Did you remove your helmet?" and I think her follow-up question was, "Removed or against your will?" I in my heart, I feel like there's probably some bylaw that says, okay, it's not nearly as bad if your helmet's removed by somebody else. Like, you can't control that, right? So maybe it's not the full process, or they kind of give you a free pass if that goes on. But either way, I do like the fact that it gives the opportunity for Gideon to get under Din Djarin's skin, but then two, I'd love to see. We haven't seen Pedro Pascal's face and Giancarlo Esposito, like them face to face and getting to see the facial language and everything else, right? That scene, I think, would be really powerful, because I think both are capable of certainly putting out great performances. So it would be a missed opportunity, in my opinion, even if they just had that one scene and never happens after that. That, there's nothing else beyond that. I think that'd be a pretty powerful moment. So I'm going to say yes. I think his helmet's removed. I think Gideon does it to get under his skin. I think we have a good moment, a candid kind of conversation about maybe he's monologuing or whatever, talking to each other, is making him feel bad, whatever it is. I think it'd be a great opportunity. So my short answer is yes, it's coming off.
I'll agree with you on that one. I think his helmet is coming off. We haven't seen his face all season, right?
Yeah.
So I think we will. Yep.
We're due for that. I guess just three more questions here, because I'm going to skip some of these other ones because we're really over on time. And not really. It's whatever. It's 500, man. Get over it. So let's. I'm talking to you, Jonesy, not the audience.
I'm fine. Let's do it for another hour.
Okay, another hour. All right. Will the heroes lose someone else? Who will die?
Oh man, that's a tough question.
This is basically the Death Watch that we do in the final hype, but we're just coming back to it again.
I think whoever the spy is has to die, right? I mean,
I'd love that.
Are they a hero? No, I guess not in that truest sense, but were they, typically on the good side, if you will? So that kind of asks whether it's Axe Woves, or if it's, it kind of goes back to the original question of who's the spy. So I think the spy definitely dies. I don't know that we have any. I mean, who else is a really memorable named character? I mean, we only have one other character that's not a Bo-Katan or a Din Djarin. We have what's her name, Casca. But again, Casca is a very secondary character at best. Not a lot of lines, not a lot of dialogue, not a lot of development, nothing like that. So a character like Paz was the only one that I would have put my hat in of saying he dies. Grogu's not going to die. And so I think we have just all these characters that are off the board. So it's either Axe, the Armorer,
Hobo Mandos,
Casca, or just the rest of the team, just the red shirts kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we're done. I don't know that we lose anybody else. Again, aside from that, Din Djarin's, fate undetermined or unknown, but I think we probably tapped out on the number of people that are going to pass. And we can make these quick. Will our heroes liberate Mandalore? I think we were both in agreement here that will happen.
I think so. Yeah, let's resolve that and establish that and see what the future holds. Yeah.
Okay. This is a very, very serious and important question. We've talked about it a lot, and I hate to kind of bring the show on a kind of a downer, but how many Dank Farriks will we get in this last episode?
We are not going to meet our quota for the season.
We said 6.
We said we had an over under. I think of I've got it actually in the thing back there.
The banner. You got a banner somewhere.
I do. We've only had 2 this season so far. The over under was 4.5. Yeah, we did not get as many Dank Farriks as we got last season. This is the most shocking thing about season 3, to be honest with you, is that we only got 2 so far.
The most shocking thing, of season 3.
So I'm gonna go on a limb here and say we're gonna get 1 this episode, but we are definitely not gonna hit our estimate. So if you had the under on this one, Jeff, wherever you're at, I don't know if he had the under on this, but Jeff,
he's betting in Vegas right now somewhere.
He's got this. He's found the right circles for this betting thing. But so I'm guessing we get 1 for the final.
Yep. Okay. I hope we get at least 1 to save face here. But our reputation's at stake, man. I don't know what to tell you. This should be the end.
Now we have to start thinking about this. The quagma. And the slimy. I can't even say it because that one keeps coming up. We've had 2 in that season.
Yeah. No, I think we're done. I think they are contractually obligated to use that phrase twice in the series, and I think we've already hit them. So you're safe at this point. Okay, last question. Now, this one is a serious question because we talked about this in the final hype show, and we both agreed that we felt like this was something that had to come out of season 3, given everything that had already built up in season 1 and season 2. I think that still holds in some regards in season 3. I think they did enough to kind of poke and prod at this a little bit more. But it's this question about what does it mean to be a Mandalore, right? Like, is it, and there's been comments, and I've purposely skipped them. I was going to go back to them. Now it's too late. I don't know where they are. There have been comments here tonight in the live feed where people have talked about what does it mean? Is it to walk the way? Is it helmets on, helmets off? Is it the acceptance of some will keep their helmets on and some will not, and it doesn't make a difference? We're still Mandalore. I think there's an argument for that as well. But we were digging at the beginning of season 3 was that we felt like coming out of this season, at the end of the season, we were going to have a very clearly defined idea of what a Mandalorian is in today's age, right? And that was going to come through Din's trials, Din's discovery of Mandalore, Bo-Katan coming to see, coming to see the ways of the children of the Watch, which actually happened. I think that was kind of cool. But I don't know. For me, again, going back to the time, it's probably nothing. I think we can probably all kind of infer what that is. I think we'll be able to infer, but I don't know if they're going to explicitly say from this day forward, helmets on or helmets off, or all helmets will be off. I mean, I don't think they're going to go through a declaration of sorts, but I think I feel like we're going to at least get a kind of a firmed up idea of what a Mandalore is at that point. That's my answer, but I want you to have the final answer on this one.
I think when you talk about resolution, this is one of those items that has to be resolved, right? Again, this is, if you're going to get behind a new Mandalore, defining what it means to be Mandalorian, I think is a part of all of that. So I think this is going to be a Patreon episode for us. We know we need to do this after the season's over.
Yeah.
We need to come back. If we get any kind of, even if it's open-ended or if we get any kind of resolution, I know us, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about this specific topic for the entire hour and see what it actually means. Because I think, yes, I think
an hour. That's a good one. I like that.
I was going to say half an hour, and I was like, I didn't want to get laughed out of the building. But I mean, yeah. So, but we have to have this resolved in some way. If you're going to go behind leadership, especially if it's a Bo-Katan who's lived in both worlds, right?
Yep.
There has to be some setting of those ground rules of what it actually means. And ground rules sounds so, it sounds too rigid, and I get that. But I think also maybe casting aside those ground rules. So ground rules meaning that the helmet thing, do what's best for you and your tribe. How do you best want to do this? What is your way of life? That is okay. But we will recognize one another. We will respect one another. That is not a limiting factor of what it means to walk the way. Right. So I think is it what does it mean to be Mandalorian? I think mostly I think of it more in terms of what does it mean to walk the way? What is the way? Redefining the way in some ways. I think they already have like 80% of what they need. They just have to cast out all of this. You've said this a number of times over the years of just cast aside some of these things that don't matter, right? These really superfluous, and they're more on the surface level type of things, like the helmet, right? There's a meaning behind that, so accentuate the meaning. Don't necessarily get too caught up in the overt, the obvious actions of it all. So I think this is something that definitely needs to be resolved. Will we get it at the really low level of detail? No, we're not going to get the 10 commandments or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
But I think, yes, I think we need to get some level of resolution. If we're going to get a Mandalore, this has to go with it. There has to be some level of it. And then we're going to come back and tear it all apart and analyze it in way too much detail in order to actually figure out what that means, I think.
So the last thing I'll comment, I've already given the answer on this, but I do want to make a comment. Like, as I was writing this question out and I've been thinking about it a lot, I don't know that they're doing this, but there are a lot of parallels between the different sects of the Mandalorians and what they believe to Star Wars fans in general, right? Like at the core, we're all Star Wars fans, but then we get so tied up in the dogma of things and what's right, legends, what's wrong, what Lucas wanted, what Disney wanted. And I just wonder at some point if they've been doing this to kind of say, look, you guys we're representing all of you in this group, and that you guys need to figure this out because you constantly bicker and fight about what's right, what's wrong, but you don't really realize that there's more, that unites you than separates you, to kind of echo that kind of cliche. But I don't know. There's so many striking parallels with the fandom these days and what the Mandalorians are going through. We need somebody like Bo-Katan to rise with the Darksaber and ride a Mythosaur. That's the only way we're all going to come together. And Jonesy, if that needs to be you, I think you've got the hair and the beard for it. So you've got my vote, sir. I
appreciate that. I think again, I think these are things that we struggle with as a culture, as a society, as a history of the human, just the human being, right? We've seen these. This has gone on forever. And so it's not unique to Star Wars. It's not unique to our fandom or things like that. Could it be a bit of a parallel story in that regard? Maybe, but I think it just reflects everything that we have experienced as a human race for the last, several thousands of years, right? These themes are always coming up, religious especially, right? We get these religious aspects of things of here's what I believe and what you believe. Fundamentally, there's a lot we all agree on, but we get caught up in all of the specifics of it all. Even within if you look at like Christianity, how many different ideas of what Christianity actually means, right? And just the little differences of it all. And even outside of all that, there's a lot of similarities in all of this. But at the end of the day, it's like there's a really core good message in all of this stuff. Can we rally around that, right? And can we reaffirm that? And then, but can we also publicly say, and then somehow I'm not saying this is for real world, I'm talking about Star Wars now, but as a people, can we come back and say, we will recognize everyone's differences, that's fine, but here are our core beliefs of what we believe, and they're very agnostic of whatever you actually want to go and practice in that way, but this is what we all come to the table back with, and this is what we all believe on. Now, I know that is that's been tried over and over again, and that doesn't always work either. But I think where they're at right now, they've got to come back and at least say it, and then people nod their head and say, "Okay, yeah, we're going to try this again. We're going to do it."
Yeah. And if I get nothing right this evening, it'll be this: the Mandalorians will learn their ways; they'll grow from that. Star Wars fans will not. So, with that note,
I care.
Spoiler. We'll end the show there. Let's see. I'm already losing my voice. Wow, we had 1 billion people out here on the show tonight. So thank you for everybody for joining in the celebration, the speculation, the theories, and all that. It's been a ton of fun. Everybody in the live chat as well. I'm going to turn it over to you so I can cough.
Yeah, sure. Jonathan, Steph, Sky, Music Train, Dale, Cube Dude, Qui-Gon J, Lauren, Alex, Obviously Subdued, Nase, Galen, Peter Griffin, Charlie Hep, Jorge, Ash, Ben Stone, Lego Cat 3000. I hope I got everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming out for the live stream. We really do appreciate it. 500 episodes is it's an important milestone for it is just a number, but it's just nice to be able to say, wow, that's a cool number of being able to do that, being a part of this and being able to share it with y'all now in the live stream, in addition to the podcast, and being able to interact with you guys more really does mean a lot to us. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for downloading the show. If you want to come see us on the live stream and join us that way, cantinacast.com/YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe, hit the notification, hit us a like if you like the content that you're seeing. And you want to see more of it, be on the lookout for the things that are coming down the pike. Those will be coming soon. We hope you enjoy those. Give us feedback. Let us know what you want. Patreon members, you have a direct channel to us as well within all of that, and message us if you ever need anything. So we really do appreciate it. So cantinacast.com/Patreon if you're interested in that.
Yeah.
Oh, Q&A. We didn't talk about Q&A, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, good.
Get those questions in, please. cantinacast.com/question. We still need some more to fill out that show. And I know we're waiting on this episode, so
I'm waiting on this episode.
Yeah, half of them will be your questions. You stop it anyway. But yeah, so after the show, get those questions into us. I want to be able to get us a show here within the next 2-3 weeks. Come back and be able to revisit all of this stuff. Thank you so like all the people in the chat. You guys have a lot of amazing, great ideas. So get those over to us. We'd love to hear them. Love to read them on air and answer them and have that conversation.
Right. Okay, well, that's going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun. And hold on to your butts because we've got, 3 days here before the final episode comes out. And I think there's going to be a lot of things answered, a lot of questions, a lot of conversation and discourse over the next couple of months until we get the next series. And that's going to be a lot of fun to do. So I don't have the credits updated, so I do apologize in advance. Once we have the Patreon stuff settled and squared away, I'll get these updated. So for anybody that's you don't see your name on here, it will be on here at some point. Were you going to say something else?
Nope. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff. But I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what. So that's your disclaimer.